Welcome to Unlocking Moves, where we're going to cover the key decision points and pivotal moments that really change the trajectory of successful entrepreneurs and leaders. We want to share stories, not just the glory stories, but also the gory stories. Because as I like to say, the bigger the shit show, the bigger the lesson. So speaking of glory and gory stories, my guest today is Anne Cheng, and she's got a ton of them. But Anne, I'd like to start off with digging into how you took Supercharge Labs from a basically running out of cash, 30 days left, to a $30 million enterprise in a matter of months. Tell us that story.
It's funny you ask, Kurt, because this is truly a gory story. I was in a relationship for 7 years, and it was a little bit toxic, to be fair. I had to do all the work on behalf of my partner at that point. And then, the big breakup, it just gave me that impetus to just invest myself, throw myself into the work, and just not think about, the good old days. And well, one thing led to another. I just went out, made new friends, made new connections. And one day I was sitting down by a social club where, I would hang out because I literally didn't have very much to do. Now that I'm single and ready to mingle, I went to the social club. And a bunch of my friends just walked in and said, "Hey, Anne, have you met my friend?" And I turned around, and it was this friend who I had lost contact with close to 8 years ago. She walks in and she says, "What are you doing here?" And I go, "What are you doing here?" So we just formed this fast friendship, me and this lady friend, Jen. And Jen basically came up to me and said, "Hey, you've got so much to give. And you're incredibly smart, you're talented, and you know your stuff. Why don't you come and pitch your solutions to me?" She was the first person who believed in me, gave me a lot of great feedback and advice. And I guess they say the rest is history. Within a matter of, I think this was 5 to 6 months, we had sold the same project to about 8 of the largest enterprise companies in that country, so famously that the government of that country said, "What are you guys doing? Can you do the same for us?" So we went from nothing to literally getting about $60 million worth of contracts, of which half of them have already closed out.
Wow. Well, I later we're going to ask you your unlocking move, and that may very well be it. So we have already gone to the punchline. But hey, everybody, my guest today is Anne Cheng. You may know her as the founder of Startup Nation, as well as Supercharge Labs. She's also the founder of Venn Capital, but her background is very diverse. She actually started in risk and compliance and became an entrepreneur. So we're going to have to dig into that here a little bit later. But Anne Cheng, welcome to Unlocking Moves.
Thanks for having me.
If you're just joining us on Unlocking Moves, today's episode is brought to you as usual by HireBetter, the strategic talent partner for growth-minded entrepreneurs everywhere. Hey, Anne, I know that you've also worked across 6 continents, so that's pretty fascinating. I'd like to ask you a follow-up. Tell me a little bit about your maybe your favorite place to do business, but also I want to spend some time on Asia in particular.
My favorite place to do business is gonna have to be Bangkok, Thailand. The people are amazing. I mean, there's nothing to hate about Thailand. The people open their arms, open their hearts, open their minds, and they welcome you in. I love the country. I love the food. I love the people. I love the business there. It's very progressive. It's changed from the old school backwater kind of look and feel to this really cosmopolitan next generation cosmopolitan city. In fact, little do people know that Thailand is home to one of the world's fastest 5G Wi-Fi speeds. In fact, it's in the top 3. You'd be really surprised there.
Wow. Well, I got to tell you, one of my very first clients when I went and became my own entrepreneur was in Bangkok, Thailand. So I spent a fair amount of time there, and I love the people. You're absolutely right; they're amazingly how friendly and outgoing they are. And I used to call it the sights and smells of Bangkok because it's got an amazing, it's an amazing place. And obviously Phuket and Chiang Mai, other places are great too about Thailand.
Absolutely.
Well, I want to dig into a little bit of something that I know is a passion for you. You have got a obviously of Asian descent, female, LBGQT. I'd love to talk a little bit about minorities in the space that you're in, and let's talk about that a little bit.
Absolutely. I think the time has come for all of us to lean in and become allies. We not only need to be allies because the world has not been kind to people who have been marginalized. I mean, it's easy to say that's not me. I can't relate because I have not gone through that. But really, nobody has chosen a life where you're walking down the street and someone hurls an insult and a beer can at your head, right? So I think it's time for the world to really lean in and say, how can we make this a safe space? It's not just inclusion. It's really about being safe, psychologically safe to say, I am celebrated for my difference. And I think that's really, this is my war cry to everybody that all of us, should really endeavor to make our organizations a safe space for people who are, different from us, whether the way they think, the way they look, the way they behave, because diversity is truly our greatest strength.
It's funny. We talk a lot about that on this show and other areas where we talk about diverse way of thinking. And if you don't have diversity in your leadership team, on your team, you're really doing yourself a disservice because you want other ways of thinking. And it's a special day today. I know it's a special day for you. It's Supercharge Lab's birthday today. So happy birthday to you. It's also International Women's Day. So a big day. I was going to ask you how folks like me could be an ally in some of those diversity initiatives. And you mentioned a few of them. What else would you share that we could do to make an impact? And I've got a follow up to that.
So I think it's removing our biases. Every journey starts from going within, right? So I think a lot of times how we behave externally to the people around us. For example, when a woman is assertive, they're called, abrasive, right? They're told to shut up or to stick it up their arse or something, that's typical. So I think one of the things that we need to do is start to go inward. How would we feel if we were on the receiving end? And a lot of guys I know will say things like, oh, I can take it. Women should, if you want to be tough, you should just toughen up. And I'll say this to you, men cry too, come on, let's be very honest. So the world just needs a little bit of kindness. And I think one of the things is that I think from an early age, I started with this personal model, which is pushing humanity forward. And the only way that we can push humanity forward is by going within ourselves and truly living the life that we would be proud of.
Well, I'll say this, Anne, you mentioned men cry too, real men cry too, and you should have show your emotions and use that as a superpower. And I'll say this too on the diversity thing. We talked about it being helping your organization. It's not only the right thing to do, which is a lot of the push, it's also good business sense. So for anybody who is wondering if I should have the opinions and diverse leadership team of females, of people of Asian descent or people of color, that's it's going to make your organization stronger and your business better. So lean into that.
Absolutely. It's not just the right thing to do, it's the profitable thing to do.
I love it. I love it. And I want to ask you a question now. So, I wrote this book, Who's Your Mike, which is about the subtitle is a no bullshit guide to the people you'll meet on your entrepreneurial journey. Some of the characters that we talked about before, Mike, the title character, basically is your bookkeeper turned CFO. He's in over his head or she's in over her head. We have Harry the Hustler is another character who's really either a very good salesperson or maybe a strong technical person we promote them to manager because that's what we want or that's what we need. And, they might fail miserably. And then Bounce Around Betty is your kind of go-to person to solve all the problems in the organization. Which ones of those resonate with you? And I'd love your perspective as an entrepreneur.
I love the three characters. And Kurt, it's a brilliant book. I heard from my ex-colleague Sandra a little bit about the book from time to time. So my favorite character is Bounce Around Betty, because I think when you're an entrepreneur, and remember that, I've been an entrepreneur a few times over, which means I failed several times before. I've learned that almost every company that you starts with Bounce Around Betty. And you probably have a number of Bettys, Bettys, Bobbies, a couple of them. So you gotta get a bunch of people in the tech side, jumping around saying, what's going on in the business side of things, and what's going on in finance, what's going on in admin. So I think one of the true natures of being a startup entrepreneur is hiring a lot of people who bounce around, just like Bounce Around Betty.
Well, they bounce around great. And then when you're ready to scale, you might need to bring in that next level professional, but you absolutely need that roll up your sleeve, do whatever it takes type of person early on. So thank you for sharing that. You shared a couple of things, Anne, that I don't want to gloss over. I want to go back to that really resonated with me. And it comes around to a confidence, and it comes around to belief that you can be successful. Some of that is what you just said about having, as an entrepreneur, you failed before and you got back up and battled. And you mentioned earlier a colleague that believed in you and gave you that confidence. Talk about that for a bit, because it seems to be such a key trait for the success of anybody in life, and especially entrepreneurs.
Yeah, I think I think the statistic was that over 70% of entrepreneurs suffer from imposter syndrome. And that's a crazy amount of people. I would wager that the number is even higher. There are some people who are in denial, probably. And I will say this, it's not easy. Every person would tell you, you're gonna fail. It's not gonna happen. Brene Brown just famously said, people are gonna come up to you and say, don't do it. You're going into the wilderness, you're gonna get lost, everything's gonna happen against you. And you just need to stand up to these people. And it's so difficult to stand alone. And all you need to say is, I am the wilderness.
I am the wilderness?
Yeah, that's what Brene Brown said. I mean, I loved it. I think one of the things is getting people to believe in you. And these people are not necessarily, in your company and your organization. They might be, just this person who's egging you along. I infamously talked about one of my my closest friends who was giving me a lot of blind faith and gave me really bad advice, because everything I said, this is a crazy idea, but should I do it? And this blind faith friend would go, yes, just do it. And I would get into trouble. But looking back, those bad experiences, they're never lost. And unless you literally don't learn from them, none of these bad experiences have ever been lost on me.
I love it. That there's a fine line between just go do it and, here, hold my beer, go jump off the cliff. And you can do it. You've got what it takes, and you are the wilderness, things like that. I'm a big believer. My mission in life, or my purpose in life, is to challenge and inspire those around me. So I'm hoping that this podcast and what Anne just said inspires you, because you can do it. All right. So, Anne, the name of the show is Unlocking Moves. As I mentioned, it's how we try to talk about those key pivotal moments or decision points that really change the trajectory for you. I've got several of them. I know you've got several of them. I want to inspire others to find their own unlocking moves. Tell me about yours.
So I think all of us are different. So some people thrive when somebody says, I believe in you. Some people thrive when, you get inspired by some motivational talk, or you go to a conference and you're like, oh my God, I just met this amazing person. And this person wants to do work with me. So a lot of us are different. For me, my biggest moves have frequently happened when I've had crazy adversity. When I left a job, one of my jobs many years ago, I could not find a replacement role. And it was early COVID. And that's like literally, if today's date, March 8th, 2023, and we're 3 years old as an organization, you kind of figure that we started during COVID, right? At the start of COVID, nobody was hiring. So that decision to start, and that decision to tell, to ask my friends, would you come along for this ride on blind faith? I'm not going to pay you for 6 months. And I probably will not pay you for another 6 months after. I have no idea. And yeah, it's blind faith. But it's adversity. The day that we closed that deal, to, I think it was $2.4 million deal. I literally could not pay my staff on that day. I had to tell my staff, I'm so sorry, guys. Salary is going to be delayed by a couple days, and we have nothing in the bank. We have $4 in the bank. What do you want me to say to you? And yeah, adversity brings out the best in me. It just makes me think, how can I make this happen? And someone once said to me this, and these are some of the lessons that I've taken along for the ride. It's not how many times you fall, and it's not even how many times you get back up. It's how fast you rebound. It's how fast you recover, and how elegantly and beautifully you recover and become better than before. So for me, it's not just about, you hit me, knock me down, I'm gonna get right up. Not only that, I'm gonna get back up so elegantly you wouldn't have thought I even went down. And I'm gonna rise higher, and I'm gonna rise so fast you freak out. So that's my state.
I love it. So you're gonna fail as entrepreneurs. You're going to fall on your butt. You've got to get back up if you have any chance, and you can do it. And everybody does. Everybody falls in their ass. Everybody has challenges, and you can't overcome. And I like that that's your unlocking move, because so many of us have something, and I have conversations like this almost daily. I got laid off. My wife left me. My father died. Whatever those things are that causes challenges, those also provide us opportunities. And especially in your career, how many people get laid off or lose their job in a recession, and how many entrepreneurs are started as a result of that? It's always amazing to see those entrepreneur numbers tick up when something bad happens. Sometimes we need that fall on our ass in order to open up our doors of possibility. So, Anne, I said earlier I wanted to come back to this. It's really burning at me. Risk and compliance management, or risk management and compliance. There's nothing less entrepreneurial in the world. Although I was an auditor, so maybe I can relate. Tell me how the hell you got into being an entrepreneur, and not just an entrepreneur, but a very successful and really world-class entrepreneur.
I think I really sucked at being a compliance professional, if you ask me. So I was actually in financial sector for a number of years, and one of the things that well, I don't know if I was infamous or I was famous for this or popular. I always got employers knocking at my door, because I was probably the only compliance professional who would say, let's look at it from a business perspective, So how can we use that framework and fit the business into a framework that, protects everybody, that pleases everybody, that makes everybody happy? So I think that was a skill which I learned early on in my compliance and risk management career. The other skill I learned was contracts, and that's an incredibly beneficial skill, right? Being able to read contracts and understand what are the limitations of contracts and how to structure a good contract and write a good contract. I think that's one thing which I have been very blessed with because of my risk management background. So I would say that everything doesn't make sense when you're looking forward, right? As Steve Jobs famously said, nothing makes sense when you're out there looking out into the abyss of the future. But when you look back, all the dots connect. It always connects. And I think if Steve Jobs did not take that, typography class, we wouldn't have the Apple computer. And likewise, if I did not fall headfirst into compliance and risk management, I wouldn't know how to create frameworks in which everybody would have their positions considered and accounted for. So I think it's not a bad thing.
So there's a saying, I think it's either something like you are where you are, or you are where you need to be, or where you are meant to be. And that is everything that's happened before now, whether you liked it or hated it, it made you who you are. And so your compliance and risk management background, why you sucked at it, it sounds like, and I was a very crappy auditor, so I can share that. We can commiserate about that. But it made you who you are, and it made you into the basis of a strong entrepreneur. You balance that with a little bit of jumping off the cliff and becoming an entrepreneur, and made you very successful. So thank you for sharing that.
Thank you.
So I like to ask this question, Anne, as we somewhat wrap up, and that is, what is one question that you either wish someone would ask you because they never talk about it, or kind of wish they wouldn't ask you?
People don't talk enough about kindness. I think in organizations, it's all about what's your power move, what's on the horizon for you, what are you gonna do in life. But so one of the I just got back from a quick trip to Singapore, where I grew up, and I had some parts of my high school there. And I gave this talk to the graduating class of high schoolers, and I said to them, somebody asked, "Are you successful?" And I looked at that child and I said to him, "What is success to you? Is it money? Is it, having everything that the world thinks you should have? Or what do you want?" And I said, for me, success is defined by the love that I give and the people who I raise up around me. And I think it says a lot about the world today. I think we're not always kind. How we deliver the words, even when we're frustrated with someone, it's an opportunity to be kind. So I think I wish more people would talk about how to be kind, how life could be much better if we were all just kind. I mean, I work in artificial intelligence, and they say, how do we remove these biases from, or singularity, when AI takes over the world? And I said, well, the honest truth is AI has to learn from humankind. Humans need to start being kind in order for AI to be kind. So I think that's kind of a good segue into, how are we going to deliver that humankind's moral compass, through kindness.
So I appreciate you saying that. We during COVID, as everyone was in their own state of morass or, challenges, I coined a phrase called H to H, human to human. That's basically reaching out to folks and helping them in some form or fashion, and mainly just asking them how they are. It's amazing how it's kind of a pet peeve for me now. If someone says, "How you doing, Kurt?" "Well, I'm doing great. How are you?" And that's just a bullshit way to say hello. And what I really want to do is I really want to find out, Anne, how are you? How are you really doing? I see that you're struggling, or look, I sense something in your tone of voice or your facial expression. and really showing that extra nth of empathy to somebody, it makes a significant impact.
Absolutely. I think that sums it up in such a brilliant way. Thank you, Kurt.
I love it. And thank you so much for joining me. How can people contact you if you'd like them to contact you?
Yeah, for sure. I welcome conversations of all kinds, just to shoot the breeze or to say, hey, tell me what you do, or say, my mom's not feeling well and I just need someone to talk to. Shoot me a note. I'm at LinkedIn. It's Anne-Cheng or Anne-Cheng. Cheng being Cheng and Anne with an E, by the way. Or ANNE at superchargelab.com is the direct way to get through to my email.
Well, we're going to put both those in the call notes. Thank you so much for sharing that. So on that note, we're going to wrap this puppy up, and I really ask you to like and subscribe Unlocking Moves wherever you consume your podcast, and go check us out on YouTube. And I will say one more time, Anne Cheng, thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate your humanness, your humanity. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Kurt, for having me. It's been brilliant.
If you're an entrepreneur and you think you might have outgrown a member of your team, or maybe you've got a mic, as we talked about in Who's Your Mic, check out this quiz at who'syourmic.com/quiz. That's who'syourmic.com/quiz.